They have promised us victory, yet they leave us in our darkest hour. Behold our so-called allies. They have abandoned Earth to die.
They were wrong. Earth survived, and 17 years later, humanity returned with a fleet the galaxy never knew existed.
The year was 2189. Earth was losing. Above the planet, thousands of enemy warships filled the sky like a second artificial night. The Galactic Coalition had promised humanity one thing: "We will not leave you." But promises meant nothing when the enemy fleet arrived. One by one, Coalition ships jumped into hyperspace. Then the final transmission reached Earth. Humanity is no longer strategically viable. The Coalition had abandoned Earth, but someone remained: the blue-skinned soldiers of the Aurelians. Their commander, Kyle, watched the retreating ships disappear. His second-in-command whispered, "Commander, if we stay, we die with them." Kyle looked toward the burning Earth below. Then he answered, "Then we die standing." For the next 11 hours, the Aurelians fought beside humanity. They knew they could not win, but they bought Earth enough time to survive. And before Kale's final ship was destroyed, he transmitted one message into deep space: "Humanity, remember who stayed." The message disappeared into the stars. For 17 years, nobody heard from Earth. The galaxy assumed humanity was dead. They were wrong. 17 years passed. The galaxy moved on. The Coalition erased Earth from its military maps. To them, humanity had become a forgotten species. But deep inside an abandoned lunar bunker, a young human soldier discovered something impossible. An old transmission. Kale's voice. "Humanity, remember who stayed." The soldier replayed it 3 times. Then the bunker lights turned red. A hidden door opened. Behind it was something humanity had kept secret for 17 years. A fleet, not hundreds of ships, not thousands, millions. The young soldier stared in disbelief. "Who built all of this?" A voice answered from behind him. Captain Elias Vance stepped from the shadows. "We did." The soldier looked at the impossible armada. "But everyone thinks Earth died." Elias smiled. That was the point. For 17 years, humanity had not been rebuilding. They had been preparing. They studied enemy technology. They rebuilt their cities underground. They developed engines that could cross space faster than Coalition ships. And most importantly, they remembered the Aurelians. Captain Vance looked toward the stars. "Find Commander Kale." A communications officer hesitated. "Sir, what if he's dead?" Elias looked at the fleet. "Then we'll find whoever remembers him." The first human transmission in 17 years reached the Coalition capital. Every communication channel went silent. Then the message played. "This is Captain Elias Vance of Earth." The Coalition leaders laughed. One commander said, "Impossible. Earth is dead." Then the second message arrived. "We are not asking for permission to return." A pause. "We are coming." The Coalition finally understood. Humanity was alive, and they were angry. But humanity did not attack. Instead, Captain Vance ordered the fleet to enter Aurelian space. Aurelian worlds were under siege. The same enemy that had destroyed Earth 17 years earlier had returned. Kale's people were losing. Their planetary defenses were collapsing. Then the sky changed. Millions of human ships emerged from hyperspace. Aurelian soldiers looked upward. Their commander whispered, "What are those?" A human transmission entered every Aurelian helmet. You stood with Earth when everyone else ran. Captain Vance continued, "Now Earth stands with you." For the first time in 17 years, Kale smiled. Because somewhere beneath the ruins of his command center, he was still alive. Kale had survived, barely. 17 years of war had changed him. His silver armor was covered in scars. His face carried wounds that would never disappear. When human soldiers entered the ruined command center, Kyle raised his weapon. Then he heard a familiar voice. "Still fighting?" Kale froze. Captain Elias Vance walked through the smoke. Kale stared at him. "You..." Elias smiled. "You remember?" Kale lowered his weapon. "I remember Earth." Elias stepped closer. "You saved millions of humans." Kale shook his head. "No, we simply refused to abandon you." Elias looked toward the battlefield. "That difference matters." Then Kale asked the question humanity had been avoiding. "Why did you come?" Elias looked directly into his eyes. Because 17 years ago you paid a debt humanity never asked you to pay. Kale's expression changed. And now? Elias turned toward the human fleet. Now we're paying it back. Suddenly, an explosion shook the city. Enemy ships had arrived. Kale looked at Elias. How many? Elias answered calmly. Enough to make this interesting. The enemy fleet was 3 times larger. Kale expected humanity to retreat. Instead, Elias gave one order. Open the vault. Across the battlefield, enormous structures emerged from underground. Kale stared. What is that? Elias answered. Humanity's first-generation defense system. Kale looked confused. You've had that for 17 years? Elias shook his head. No. The ground began shaking. We built it yesterday. Thousands of gigantic rail cannons rose from the planet. The enemy fleet opened fire. Humanity answered. The sky became a storm of light. Enemy battleships exploded one after another. But then something enormous appeared. The enemy flagship, a ship so massive it blocked the sun. Kale whispered. That ship destroyed our capital. Elias looked at the screen. Then we'll make sure it remembers us. The flagship fired. A planetary shield collapsed. Millions of people screamed. Elias remained silent. Then he gave 3 words. Bring her home. The largest human battleship entered the atmosphere. Its name appeared across every military channel. The enemy flagship opened its primary weapon. A beam of energy struck the human battleship. The humanity's dawn disappeared inside a cloud of fire. Kale whispered, They're gone. Then the smoke cleared. The ship was still there, damaged, burning, but moving. Elias opened a channel. Status? The commander answered, 30% hull integrity. Elias asked, Engines? Still running. Weapons? A pause. Still angry. Elias smiled. Good. The human battleship accelerated. It crashed directly into the enemy flagship. The impact shook the entire battlefield. Human soldiers watched as the 2 colossal ships collided. Kale realized what Elias was doing. You're sacrificing your ship, Elias answered. Not the ship. He looked toward the bridge crew. Just the part they can replace. The battleship's outer hull separated. Hidden inside was another weapon, a massive nuclear gravity core. The enemy flagship had no time to react. The core detonated. The enemy's largest ship disappeared. And across the galaxy, every sensor detected the explosion. Humanity had announced its return. The battle ended. The enemy fleet retreated. But Kale discovered something that changed everything. The coalition had known Earth survived. For 17 years. They simply chose not to tell anyone. Why? Because they were afraid. Humanity's technology had advanced too quickly. The coalition had secretly monitored Earth. They feared that if humanity ever escaped its isolation, it would become stronger than them. Kale confronted the coalition commander. You abandoned Earth because you were afraid. The commander answered, Earth was unpredictable. Kale looked at Elias. No. Elias stepped forward. Earth was loyal. The commander laughed. You expect us to believe that? Elias activated a recording. It showed the battle 17 years earlier. Aurelian ships protecting human evacuation vessels. Kale's final transmission. The coalition leaders watched silently. Then Elias said, You called humanity a liability. He looked around the chamber. But the species you abandoned became the only reason your civilization still exists. Silence. Then a new transmission arrived. Millions of human ships had entered coalition space, not to conquer, to negotiate. The galaxy expected humanity to demand territory, resources, military power. Instead, Elias placed a single document on the council table. Kyle looked at it. What is that? Elias answered. The Earth Accords. The agreement contained one demand. If any civilization was abandoned during an invasion, humanity would defend it, no matter how weak, no matter how poor, no matter how far away. Kale stared at Elias. You came all this way just to create that? Elias nodded. We know what abandonment feels like. Then the coalition leader asked, What do you want in return? Elias smiled. Nothing. The room went silent. Kale finally understood. Humanity had not returned to collect a debt. They had returned to erase it. The debt had been paid the moment humanity arrived. Now humanity wanted to make sure no other civilization would ever stand alone again. Then the doors exploded. Enemy soldiers attacked the council. But this time, the entire galaxy stood together. The final enemy armada arrived. This time, there were no millions of human ships alone. There were billions of soldiers from dozens of worlds. Aurelian fleets, human fleets, former coalition fleets, all fighting together. The enemy commander opened a galaxy-wide channel. "You cannot defeat us." Elias answered, "We don't have to." The commander laughed. "Then why are you here?" Elias looked toward Kale. Kale looked back. Then Elias transmitted one final message. "Because 17 years ago, one civilization stayed when everyone else ran." Across the galaxy, Aurelian soldiers raised their weapons. Elias continued. "Today, nobody runs." The combined fleet attacked. The enemy formation collapsed. One world after another joined the battle. For the first time in galactic history, humanity wasn't fighting alone. And when the final enemy flagship exploded, Earth sent one final message. "We remember." 1 year later, the ruins of Earth were rebuilt. But humanity did something unexpected. They built a monument. Not for human soldiers, not for human kings, not for humanity. The monument was dedicated to the Aurelian soldiers who had stayed 17 years earlier. Kale stood beside Elias. "You know," Kale said, "your people are strange." Elias smiled. "We've heard that before." Kale looked at the monument. Was the debt really necessary? Elias looked toward Earth. "No." Kale frowned. "Then why?" Elias answered, "Because some debts aren't meant to be paid." He paused. "They're meant to be remembered." Above them, thousands of human and alien ships flew together. For the first time in history, the galaxy had a new understanding of humanity. Humans were not the strongest. They were not the oldest. They were not the most advanced. But when everyone else abandoned someone, humans remembered who stayed. And that was enough to change the galaxy forever.